Hey YouTube, a fellow subscriber to our channel suggested I give a little tour of our property, so this is a basic run through on what we've got going so far. This is a rain garden that collects the water from two downspouts on either side of our garage. I trenched underground with drain tile, and when we get heavy rains, this whole indention here fills up with water and overflows, which leaches it back into the ground out here. The nice thing about this is all the other downspouts, when we get heavy rains, the whole area that it drains into floods, and for hours, sometimes days afterwards, there could be standing water there on the ground, which is annoying and not fun to walk through. But this area contains it all, so we don't get any runoff standing in the yard. It stays right there and it leaches back into the ground. Eventually I'll get some growies that can withstand drought and heavy saturation of water, some marsh type plants. Pickler weed is one of them. I'll get some growies in there, it'll look a little bit nicer. This is our cherry orchard. This is a Stella cherry, a Bing cherry, and a Rainier cherry. In one of my previous videos you saw me put Patriot, North Blue, and a North Country blueberry bush in there, blueberry bushes. And we also grow zucchinis, and I plan to put pumpkins in here as well. And next spring I'll be making a video on starting lavender indoors, and I'm going to put a couple of lavender plants around each one of the cherry trees. So that's the cherry orchard. This is just our, this was our original garden bed actually. I came up with this layout based on some garden beds I already had at my parents' house before we bought this property. I took the wood that I used for that, and I'm a drafter, so I work in AutoCAD every day as a living. So I took the wood that I already had and I laid it out in different orientations to try and maximize the amount of garden space without having to go and purchase more wood. So this is the layout I came up with. Two big X's with a couple of smaller beds on the sides. This is where we put our onions, potatoes, tomatoes, peppers. I've got a trellis back here that we've done cucumbers, beans, peas, carrots, radishes, you name it, we've had it in here. That's a heritage ever-bearing raspberry bush, as well as that. So we get a spring and a fall crop of raspberries off of each of those bushes. This is a Prime Arc Freedom blackberry, I believe it's called. Also an ever-bearing, so we get a spring and a fall harvest off of that. And there's another one back there too, on the other side of the raspberry. And then back here is our little vineyard. We have 3 varieties of grapes. Let's see if I can remember what they are. Neptune. Let me just put a piece of text down here. I don't remember exactly what we have planted here. Neptune is one of them though. And then behind them is a wildflower bed. We have, these are all native wildflowers to the Midwest, and they're perennial, so every year they'll come back. We actually weren't supposed to get really any flowers this year because it's the first year that we've had them in here, but next year it should look a lot nicer, be a lot taller, and then be a lot more color in there too. Alright, on to the next beds. Alright, so back here, historically I've done my garlic in this bed. As you will see or have seen, I'm not sure when I'm going to upload this video, we had sweet potatoes in this bed as well. The rabbits did a number on those sweet potatoes because I didn't have any fencing around them, so the sweet potatoes just really didn't do too well this year. Lesson learned, and I do want to try again, but I'll put them in a different bed that's got more protection next year. Back here we have Jersey Night asparagus with Ozark Beauty strawberries in between. Again, no fencing on this bed, so the rabbits really ate up the strawberries quite a bit, and I didn't get a good harvest on those this year. But I plan to, before winter, when we winterize this bed, I'll put some hardware cloth fencing around it to try and keep the rabbits out of there too. These two beds I had sunflowers and corn in this year. The squirrels don't have a problem getting up and over this fence, and the squirrels ripped out all the corn and ate it for themselves, so we really didn't get a harvest on that this year either. Probably going to take some time off of growing corn and utilize these beds for something different next year. Alright, this area has been a big project this fall that I've documented. So I put 2 beds in here with peppermint that I transplanted out of here and moved into here. I think that bed, peppermint didn't survive, but this one, the peppermint's doing quite well. So next year that peppermint will easily take over this whole bed. It's a very hardy and invasive herb, so we'll probably transplant some of that out into that bed, or maybe do a different herb in this bed for something different. We'll see. And I marked 3 locations throughout here that I'm gonna root some cuttings of American elderberries back here next year to make elderberry syrup and other goodies with that. A lot of health benefits to it, a lot of medicinal uses. Back here, our compost pile. Got some block and some other things that I'm going to use in future videos for some other projects. Some firewood. We don't have a indoor wood fireplace, but we use this for bonfires with the family and friends. Just more for fun. Another bed here that I had the Hungarian hot wax peppers in. I usually do my salad greens in here too, spinach and lettuce, and then grow peas up the trellis. And I should mention that Sarah uses the end of that trellis and the end of that trellis to grow flowers. We like to have a nice variety of edibles and ornamentals. Pollinators enjoy that as well. Just a good mix, and it makes everything look nice. Our storage shed for lawn equipment, all that good stuff. And this is the main orchard. I basically refer to it as the apple orchard, but we do have other trees growing in here as well. This is a Methley plum tree. We have an Alberta peach tree right there. Honeycrisp apple tree. Macintosh apple. A wine sap apple and a honeygold apple. And then in between here, I put these trellises in this year but didn't get a chance to utilize them yet. So there's 4 sides to this trellis, and I think we'll have 36 shelling peas growing up these trellises next year, if I remember what I planned correctly. So those are peas that will grow for the intent of shelling them out. And then also, as you saw or will see again in my other video, we grow pumpkins and watermelons throughout the orchard. That was our first year doing that. This was our first year. And we had some success and some failures and learned a lot from that, and hope to improve our harvest next year. On the back side of our house here, I mentioned in a previous video, we have a umbrella clothesline, cut down on some of the electrical consumption and gas consumption inside the house for drying clothes when the weather's appropriate. Obviously we live in Wisconsin, so it's hit or miss a lot here. There's a few trees I can show you on the front of the house too that are silver maples. They're kind of the junk maples of the maple family, but I do tap them and make maple syrup out of them, which I like. It turned out pretty good. Not as good as if they were sugar maples, but it was a fun process, and I plan to keep doing it. We also have a smoker back here, so we smoke meats on there occasionally and some other things. I can make videos of that in the future. Then we've got our rain barrels. Each one's 58 gallons, and we really only water our gardens during drought or during transplant periods. Otherwise, with the mulch, everything's pretty much self-sustaining, which is awesome. I really don't have to do weeding or watering, just some general walk through and pick some stuff out every now and then. But the gardens really take care of themselves, which is great. Alright, this is our chicken area. So we had 8 chickens initially, and within the first week one of them just wasn't putting any weight on, and ended up passing away. So we've got 7 chickens in here now. Each one is a different variety. I'll put a piece of text down here in the video of what each variety is. And I can also include a link in the description to the design that I followed to build this. I modified it slightly and made it work for us. Cut down on the cost a bit too. Shout out to a good friend of ours, the owner of Create Simple. She put together this vinyl cutout for us, and I put it on this board and lacquered it. Pretty cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, so that's the chicken coop. Right here we've got a sugar maple. I put this sugar maple in when it was about a foot tall, and that was 2, maybe 3 years ago, and it's easily 12 feet tall now. A coworker gave us this little sugar maple that we transplanted out here. So really happy with that. Maybe in 40 or 50 years I'll be able to tap that for maple syrup. I forgot to mention that Create Simple also put together these yardage markers for us. 40 yards, 35, 30, 25, and 20 for a target. I just threw that out there for reference, but I will be building a hanging target back there for archery practice for hunting season. Alright, this is our main wildflower bed. So all this area in front of the beehives here, between the beehives and the chicken coop, is all native wildflowers to the Midwest. You saw in my previous video I transplanted 2 lemon balm plants there. Those things are pretty neat. You just walk by them and run your hand through them. Everything smells like lemons then. Alright, coming down from the wildflowers, I made a path here to get to the beehives. So this is where we keep our honeybees. It's kind of cool out today, so I'm not seeing too much activity out here. These are Carniolan honeybees, which are a European variety. Our beekeeper came out and put pails of sugar water on top of each one. There's a hole in the top lid of each hive to allow them to continue to feed and stock up on their nectar and honey supply to get them through the winter. As I also mentioned in a previous video, our beekeeper will be adding another hive out here next year, and we'll be putting a personal hive up as well, so we will have a total of 4 hives on our property to pollinate our orchards and gardens and all of our neighbors' flowers and gardens as well. Alright, leaving the apiary, I have a bonfire pit here that we burn a lot of brush and debris that we clean up in the yard, as well as have get-togethers with family and friends. When we bought this property, I made a deal with Sarah that I wouldn't do anything on this side of the yard, which, oops, I kind of broke a little bit of that rule. But we wanted to leave this open for our kids to have a place to play and run around. Eventually we plan to get a jungle gym playground area here for them. Alright, on the north side of the house here we have a bird feeder with a hanging suet feeder. And we put oranges and whatnot up there for orioles. And then a bird bath, which I actually technically put in for the bees for a water source. But the birds use it too. It's nice to look out our kitchen windows here and see the birds feeding at the feeders. Some good biodiversity in the yard. Coming around the front side, this is a prairie fire crabapple tree that was actually sent to us on accident. But the company didn't want it back, so I put it in the yard. That's a tree that we just put in this spring, a hydrangea limelight tree. And this bed here I designed and built myself, and that downspout runs out through it right there. We have some phlox flowers around in here that hopefully will fill up this whole bed with beautiful multicolored flowers. Here's another one of our silver maples. That's a silver maple. This is a silver maple. We tap all of those for syrup early spring. So yeah, that was a quick run through of the Green Acre and what we've got going on so far. Lots of plans for the future, which I plan to document and share with you guys. I hope you enjoy what we're doing here.